Okay, we're going to look at the spinal cord. The average adult spinal cord is about 17 inches long. It is a continuation of the brainstem, and that level is about the foramen magnum, where the brainstem will turn into the spinal cord. It is responsible for the afferent-efferent input. Remember, afferent is body to brain, and efferent is brain to body. The reflex centers are also located in the spinal cord, so this is where we get our spinal reflexes. And this statement completed at this level means that if you strike, let's say, the patellar tendon, which is L4, L5, the information is going to go into that level of the cord at L4, L5. The cord is from the foramen magnum to L1, L2. Now this is a little tricky because the spinal cord does not go all the way down to the tailbone. It actually stops at L1, L2. And the meninges protect the spinal cord, just like it protects the brain. So we have the dura mater, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater. And the coverings will go all the way down to about S2, S3. Okay, so the meninges surround the brain, and they go all the way down to the spinal cord and S2, S3. Okay, we have 31 pair of spinal nerves that come from the cord and exit the vertebral column to innervate the body. So after L2, now we just got done saying on the prior slide that the spinal cord goes from about the foramen magnum down to L1, L2. Okay, now the rest of the cord is called the cauda equina. So the continuation of the spinal cord is the cauda equina, and that translates to horse's tail. You can see the cervical nerves that come out, and the thoracic, and the lumbar, and sacral. Okay, the gray matter of the spinal cord, which is that classic H that's inside the cross section of the cord. We have the posterior or dorsal horns, anterior or ventral horns, the central canal of the cord, which contains the cerebrospinal fluid, and the neurons that are located within the gray matter that help with the synapses incoming. So the input into the cord will synapse in the gray matter, and the cell bodies and the neurons. Okay, here's an example of that gray matter area, that H or butterfly shaped part of the cord. There's the central canal where CSF will circulate. Okay, we have the dorsal or posterior horn, the ventral or anterior horn, because this is the front of the cord, so this is the anterior side. This is the posterior side of the cord. The dorsal horns contain cell bodies of interneurons and sensory neurons. And then the ventral horns contain the cell bodies of motor neurons. Okay, so make sure you write that down. The dorsal horn is responsible for sensory input, and the ventral horn is responsible for the motor neurons. Okay, we'll map that out later. But for right now, please just know that definition. Dorsal horn, sensory input, anterior horn, motor output. Okay, the white matter of the cord is myelinated. That's what gives it that white appearance. And they are divided into the posterior which is sensory, the anterior, which is responsible for pain and temperature, and the lateral columns, which is a motor response. And this is something we'll map out shortly on another slide, another lecture. Okay, the central nervous system, by the 4th week, the brain begins to form, and the spinal cord will complete its formation. So together, the brain and the spinal cord are considered the upper motor neuron. Okay, upper motor neuron. And they're composed of the gray matter and the white matter. So in embryological development, and that's what we mean by 4th week here, embryological development, the nervous system forms very early, which is very important because it is going to function all the other systems. So keep in mind, brain and spinal cord function everything. Okay, with some neuroanatomy here, starting with the smallest inside component, we'll work our way out. We have the axon that is surrounded or covered by the myelin sheath. And then all of that is covered by the endoneurium. If you take enough endoneurium and wrap them together, or put them together, you're going to wrap them in the perineurium. And that perineurium creates a fascicle. So in this particular picture, you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 fascicles. Okay, all the fascicles bound together is wrapped by the epineurium. There are blood vessels that do supply our nerves. Okay, in the neck, this is brachial plexus that comes down, and we have different nerves. We'll name these nerves later in another slide and get more detailed with them, but there's the axillary nerve, the radius nerve, the median. In the lumbar spine, we've got the lumbar plexus, which comes out, femoral nerve, obturator nerve, femoral cutaneous nerve. And then we have the sacral plexus, including this big sciatic nerve. Okay, and then we'll name these again in another slide and dive into more detail of where they're coming from, where they're going, what they innervate, stuff like that. Okay, this one is showing the sympathetic division, which the pre-ganglionic neuron releases acetylcholine, and the postganglionic neuron releases norepinephrine. And the norepinephrine is what tells your body to be in sympathetics, which is fight or flight. If you get the adrenals involved, your preganglionic axon will release acetylcholine. And then when it synapses on the adrenal medulla, it's going to release epinephrine, norepinephrine into the blood, which when these catecholamines hit tissue, it's going to tell tissue to be in sympathetics. And then the parasympathetic division, which is rest and digest. The preganglionic neuron is long compared to the short preganglionic and sympathetic. So the parasympathetic is long. It releases acetylcholine. And then on the postganglionic, it also releases acetylcholine. So when acetylcholine hits tissue, it tells it to be in rest and digest mode, or parasympathetics. Okay, also know that your sympathetic division, which is the blue that you see here, so this is, let's see if I can get a blue marker to show up. So this is a sympathetic division, and this is T1 down to L2. This is where we find all of these sympathetics. Okay, and if you trace all these nerves, they go from preganglionic to the sympathetic chain ganglion. and then the postganglionic innervate everything in your body. So think about this. If you are in stress mode, fight or flight, sympathetics. Here's a question. What part of your body is not in sympathetics? If you're stressed, if it's fight or flight time, what part of your body is not in sympathetics? Well, the answer is everything's in sympathetics. Everything in your body is prepared for fight or flight stuff. Okay? On this side, we're seeing the parasympathetic division, which is craniosacral. Okay, so in the neck, that area would be considered cranio. And then we have in the tailbone area